Aigi topic asigi maming Manipuri nationalism and India's nationalizing politics. Manipur hoji lari bo afum se tangdu laita da phibam basi asuk wangkhalak basi gi maram asi karino. Manipuri natrana Manipur haibu wakhalon asi kadai yona khomang saupsan khrage natrana kadai yona hai thakrage haiba thabak tiamna tawning bana hasing lebak su lepchening bana hasing ahal laman singna thambiraba phazarba tradition kaya asi Kuttigi Nantoki Bagum, Pauli Basikari, Masidi Karam the Kangadi, Haiban Nunang Base, Koikudi Maktalay. Loshangi Tabak, Inkang Tomatom da Sel Peter the Artaba, Natagana Kanachanaba, Natagana Matic Labor, Music Sing, Tonington, the Tobagi Film Black Pasida, Civil Society, Haidana Kunai, Gi Salon, Gi Sarpori by Koyasina, Kadai de Hogagi, Haibasigi, Pai Basida, Nasile. Maramaduna nationalism haibasi na honona yengba mathautai nationalism khudimksi afabo ibra nationalism khudimksi phattabo ibra natgana nationalism kharamana phabra kharamana phattabra haiba question se tholokpa haiba tar adabu left scholarship haibadi communist scholarship na di nationalism haibasi taraina lawdaba aduba hekta line chummi haidaba philosophy amadi wakhalon de yengi marabni nationalism haibasi taseng ama yamna tamthi ba saklon lorok pa yabagi makhalon su yawba mauna machaksing yawba aduna nationalism gi frep uyung or urep tamba matamda yamna hena section ningai oiba aduga nhona matam khudimta patam sing yengdaba lawdaba yadaba film leibana Nationalism haiba wakhalon asimak plain sheet amanate haibasi thamjani maramaduna angalingai matamdagi hauna aikhoigi miyobagi civilization si hainabalai atombadagi akutpada kumai aduga akutpadagi atombada haigat khidi haina Maramaduna Manipur ki civilization, the idea of Manipuri asisu, adugumba atongba kunai singdagi, atongba lamdam singdagi, kumtarakba civilization, amna samlakba adugum Manipuri nesni, haina, ay premises thamsaki. Maramdi Manipur the Lairembi clan sing makoy marakta toromba, war makoy marakta lainara mukna ramba sing ase, apapa punsirol amagidam ta negotiation tonrakpa, amasong identity, common collective identity, form torpe kongchada se kun upafangi. Tampakilam tab ngasi ay kunilay mo mapam sida lawshing uba horokiba amasong masigi lawshing uba amasong itay lakong lak podagi lamdam asom da circular sign ahen ba pochai putokpa lak pa horok podagi moderate economy tholokpa na maramori institution tholokpa laipak semlapa state semapa amasong lami semakpagi wari kaya ma ikuna tai maram aduna Manipuri civilization asida Lainga Punsirol Sembagi Kangona say, Jahi Lishing Jack Yadagi Lai have say, Madugi Senmi Amadi, Punsirol Honkiba, Atomadi, Akutpa the Kumakiba Punsirol do Sago Nei, Haina, Tamsaki. Maramaduna, Manipuri, Haibo Wakalona say, Chingamasung Tam, Anigimar Labor Kaibum Wakal Adunati, Manipuri, Haibo Wakalona say, Chingamasung Tam, Anigi, something hybrid or Baduma community, Punsirol Adugi, Machat Europa, Wakalona Mani, Haibasini. Asumna lakba sina nakal amarom de yeng rabadi atong badalaiba amasung akut badalaiba anigi marakta natragana khara hena khunda duna lerba khunai punsirol amaga amasung khunda bagi kanglon da ningthina sangatriba kochet chatlag leba khunai punsirol kanglon anigi marakta muknabadi history da maikai kya da thokhi balai masi mongol singi punsirol da uba phangthi Adu yam interesting oiribadi ai khoina tampak lamdam da natna settle oina tangdu laitana mayum makai pandana lawshing udna nga phadana surplus putugnu laiba khunai singi punsirol asisu kochat saliba community sina karigum badasu noing basu phawi haiba punsi khongchat su lai karigino haiba matamda ai khoina lawshing ubda waba aduki matik waba adugumna kochat chatpa khunai singna su kochat chatnaba khona bada makhoina thengriba awa basisu chap manei makhoi gi production system lai haiba Atugumba, premise, Atugumba, Kalon Sulay. I never see Heiser given up Dingasi, Sattler Amasung Nome, Anigi Marakta conflict hopani, Hiber narrative Amaiko Marakta Hek, La Podugi, Maike the Miang Tambayana Bagi Tamakta, Punsigi, Maubiovic Itihas, Kanglon Singhi and Gorabadi, Anisigi Marakta competitive relationships to lay, Anisigi Marakta conflicts to Lakey, Anisi Marakta negotiations to Lakey. Haizening badi kochet chatpa khunai punsirol adugisu macha world view lay makhogisi economy makhalama lay aduga Khundaduna Laireba, Kunai Sing, Adugishu, Makogisu, Punsi Kanglo Lay, State Semi, Law Semi, Aduga, Taxation Semi, Aduga, Territory Semi, Ningto Punsiro Lai, Punamak Sing say, Worldview, Anigi, Trajectory, Lay, Haina, Low Rabadi, Manipuri, Wakalon, Assi Sagat, Pada Karahena, Democratic Weba, Asai Horp, Pada Haizakiba, Nationalism, Pazo Macha, Tolokani, Haibasi. Masi Marxist scholar Tom Nairn Hibamatamdi nationalism si Apabasulai, Patabasulai Hai. Apabana Karambano Hairagadi, Punsin Bayaba, Sakti, Matik Singsi, Yenabayaba, Federal Oba, Democratic Oba, Adi Kanuna Duman Afaba, Secular Oba nationalism, Amagi, Macha Oilawi. Aduga, nationalism Mingda, reactionary Oba, exclusivist Oba, ethnic Oba, racist Oba, Masiumba, majority Oba, Duna, Pataba nationalism. Machakni Haina, Manakan Hai. Aina Kanzabada, Manipuri nationalism, Adugumba, racist Oidaba, secular Oinabuhonaba, democratic Oinabuhonaba, Adugi Punsi, Kongchit Amada, Lakiba nationalism, worldview Lazaba, Kanglun Amani, Haina, Ihana nationalism, scholarship sing Sing Bada, Power, Takak Singado, Nasi, Miang on the Tamsigi. Sum Sanksila Pasida in Hining Basi, nationalism Yakangai Karana Haibada, I Nasigasi academic, purely academic exercise in lobby, Masi classroom, the Pananga Padu, Hina lobby, the Suka Shukaidi, Karigino Haibadonasi, I bomb to the Kobi Basi, active someone Kobi Benate, I see politician when Kobi Benate, I see academic when Kobi Beni Maramaduna, 45 minutes long, none of Matam Pibani, Maramaduna, I Ningtamba, academic, Amma when a train, Torapada, nationalism get tenor for Machak Singado, Miam to Tamjaraga. Tungi Mirol Amadi Tinvi Miam Wakal Kanina Vikudong Sapa Pambrahado Yangi. Anthony Smith Haidana, scholar Mahano worked over to nationalism. I line among Kotini Haizadism Matam Pangdabrina. Nationalism say Mahana Yang, but the D Yam Sing, Haraga, Akoigi, pre colonial Oiba, Aduga, Yamna Prime Model Oiba, Ariba, Akogi, Massi Mit Oibisia, Sakat Pasu Oibia, Aduga, Massi Hauna, Haurak Lon Sing the Yum Pam Oiba, Adumba, Wakalon Amani, Haina, Maniam, Kanatam the Bohoni. Haibadi Manipuri nationalism, see Ikona, Haurak Wadi. Sago and a ying labusu, Manipuri nationalism, Sigi Machaksi Pangi Haidari. 21st century ki building na Wankro, skyscraper, Lakabamatam Masida, Infalgi, Valida, Yumthong Singda, Mera, Hauchomagi, Mera, Wayung Bahibasi, scientifically, Yamatum, the Haiba was Uruidopone, other boy going to see Yumi Karigino Haida, prime model. Horok loan gi wari singa dong asisu concrete ki buildings in a question lava amana mo masa khangna draba Yum loan of a sin over Pangamatam Asida, Mera Wayung Bagi experience among us is Laiba say, Hogi Prime Model, Machaxing Adona Manipuri Nationalism Foundation Sisu Way, Haiba City. I am not Marxist positioning example. I'm a higher Gadi and Sai Horpod Haizakiba, human civilization give much as I am an atom with a Kutpadakumai, Haibi. Kudam Masita Sheng, Hyderabading Saiki, for hills the Ladeba, tribal Singsina, Valley Gayam Nakshin Bagi Adugumba, Punsi Kanglon, Wakalon, Longi, Pazaba, Anisi, Marta Pauna Bangamba, Hena, Laiba, Asisu, Amarab Daikoinayam, Namak Hyderba Kudam Adugi, Laro make me Hina Logia. Atheng Matamda, Handaxia in a Ubamatamda, Foothills Ki Naga Golding Committee, Semapasui, Masisu Aina Kanbada, Apagi identity politics, Ano Bamayola Mani, Haibasani. Foothills Ki Naga get to Gumba Semak Pasida, I had Ngam the Badikarino, Hypomasaki, Atombums or good Pani, Mertel, Gapasi, Tashinada Bayadi, Haibagi, Wakal Paring the Taboxing Pakalai, Matigi premise, Matigi philosophy, Madi Wakalona say. Ever-changing nationalism, Manipuri worldview to Mateng Oi, Haibasi, Aina, Tamsiri, Tabotabu, Haiba, Wakalon Asida, Yari Makai, Kadai the exclusivist Oiba, Kadai the Kankuba Machaxing Yawe have the Tidoga, Madulo Tonabu struggle mechanism, Malahoto Targadi, Maduna Hena, Manipuri worldview historically evolved or Manipuri Wakalona to the Jating, Pirakningai Oiti, Haibasisu, Haizabungam Zade, Maramaduna, Karahena, Masigi Matan, Antonina Haibasi, Karigumba, Quina, civic nationalism, Asina, apun bawa kalau na sagat petar gadi kari gumma dan ethnic nationalism asinadi kaibung wakal macam unbusu yai hai basini maram maduna ikona haurap wakalon asi ikona season naba matamda haurap punsiro asi wari sing ikona celebration taw matamda modern nation amada changkhra matungda constitution ama ikhra matungda anuba democracy gi punsi pathapta changkhra matungda lakhiba Miyoi Kangup Singh Sibu, Karamna, Horok Warol, Horok, Punsiro Yaropa, Aduga, Anuba, citizenship ki, Amasung, modern nation gi Macha, Adu Yaushil, Persing Adugi, balancing Ekamata Hubungam Drabadi, Manipuri nationalism, the Achopating, Mubigani, Hibasima, Yamna Jackson, I Boiba, Nasing a similar labor Manipuri, people Masidadi, Matugi, Machak Sing, Yamna Maraka and Tolok Pasina, Yamnama, Ashigo Mipam Masi, Akona Pamba Matau Tarakpa, Adana cultural nationalism. Limitations yamna lay pa ama lay ba matamda dharma ama khatang lay gado bani hairaba lay pa ama lay matamda kanun ama khatang lay gado bani haiba adugi phibam da kumthara khiba tarabadi madugi nationalism ado kaida wada afaba nationalism oide haiba se akoi puarina khudamni manipur adugi lamado thuba yade haiba se ngasigi mirol amadi academy ana masigi wakhalon se puthopa mathau tai ihau tawbiri bising su masigi maikaida miyang thamhudaba tarabadi अखोगी पुआर ने पिरक पतांग खरब खुदोल मणिपुरी वर्ल्ड व्यू से मांकी बयाई हाइबगी जिंगन बसिसु अखोना उबदा फावी असुमना सुम जंगसिलक पासना वेस्टर्न की नेशनलिज्म अदुगा मणिपुरी नेशनलिज्म असिगगी खेनबा खरम खयाम चाउन उफंगी खुदमना अखोगी नेशनलिज्म दे यामना अखंग है ओरिबा अखोगी लेफ्ट स्कॉलरशिप दे यामक सु ओरिबा अर्नेस्ट गैलर ना हाइबदी नेशनलिज्म हाइबदी तसेंगम हारदी अखोगी एग्रेरियन इकोनॉमी दगी इंडस्ट्रियल इकोनॉमी लापदगी नेशनलिज्म की वखलोन थोलपनी साइंस लापदगी थोलपनी अदे इंडस्ट्रियलाइजेशन कैपिटलिज्म लापदगी थोलपनी हाइबगी मियंग सि थमी अदबो मणिपुरी पुनस्रोल दंग सि फावदा एग्रेरियन इकोनॉमी दगी इंडस्ट्रियलाइजेशन इकोनॉमी दा संख्यबगी फेज दरिंग असि 21st सेंचुरी मणिपुर दा अदगी मोमेंट यौद्री हाइबसनी यस आइको इंडस्ट्रियल इकोनॉमी दा कोई चंगई अदबो कोई चंगी सिदी इंडस्ट्रियल इकोनॉमी not in that western classical sense we are entering into industrial economy only through service sector without producing anything and the concept of the haibi giba I go zi yetu mamo uthupungam dawi film de lai haibi maike yadom da miyang singsin jarga European nationalism ki aduguma capitalism ki drive aduga industrialization ki drive gi European nationalism sem khiba adugi khongchal adu di Manipuri nationalism si lakhi de haina ai ngasi shu lozai maram baduna ai khoi gi nationalism ge pattern si yamnama west ka yengro da tongali haiba si ai khoi khangba mathau tai tawbadabu ai khoi gi ahlaman singna British na chalamdai matamda ai khoi gi Manipuri nationalism si karam haina modern form that translate tawdagi haibasi makoi khanglami maramadra constituent assembly inklami jingmi tami Mohammedan Singh yauna Manipur da constitution ibagi aduma constituent assembly linkhatuna Manipur da hena secular democratic oiba aduma punsi kanglona bada Manipuri khunai se nationalist world view ma sagatuna matamadu lebe khena basing dui kai khumnana Manipur se jing amasung tam ani ge symbiotic hybrid relationship adu da work tawda yamna mai pakhi haina haibada to don cheningai leiti maramaduna Manipur bu merger tawda namja namthik namde chenaba political party natragana count ki oiba miyang the nationalism sagat pa aduma political party na Manipur gi nationalism amsung Manipuri gi political history bu interpret tawda badi kaidong da ba mai badi oiroi haibasima miya pham thamsiki Marabaduna koi ishagi pride laina ishagi punsi khongchat khangna adugumba political forces mayamna aikogi haurak punsi khongchat democratic political culture asibu machu sangsin na bahonaba aduga miyam confused tohanna bahonabana ngasidi Manipuri haribo wakhalon sida khaibung punsiro lakhi basidigi section ningai oi madna ngasi urepna regional aspiration haribasi political party on the lozade aigi miyang dedi masi wakhalon moine lozai maramdi ngasi resistance ke narrative the wesia gi khud wesia haribo punsi khongchen ama wakhalon ma tholak leba amasung indiana Manipur laushin na ba hona bada pikhiba maram sing punamak yengrabadi historically we were always a region historically we were always distinctive haiba mamiyadidi aibana khudam changdam ngasi su lepli haibase masi haibada thodona kiningai su leite jingningai su leite matugi gut feeling du phawdi Manipur kanimba Manipuri nationalism bu apapamong da pusinning ba bioi singna lepham thopra haibadani adu haibu sungam daba political forces me amna khogi punsi khongchit pusuna thaina bo hona biba ai ki regional aspirations me am laksaraga laikhiba adu ba ure mayam du su tu hat bigi haiba adu ga ai khona Manipuri kanba wadi ngang daba phibam di phirep di laudaba targadi Manipur kanba yaroi regional aspirations su ngak pungamoi haiba sini regionality or regional aspirations haibasidi masana maromdom thokcharapa experience the base to ba waklona masi mondran sanara tholakpanate masi nukshitai paithorappanate masi atiada paiba lechil gumanate masidi hakthengana sagona ba punsi khongchat masi koina ai ki PhD da experiential antagonist haibadi aina thengnaruba phibam singduna aigi enemy asikanano haibase aina khangba hor mana thengnaruba experience dana magi maruk kanano magi enaba kanano haibase khangba hor haibasidi masana taba nature gi law amani haibata maramaduna aikhoigi regionality su adugumba experience amani haibasidi George Agamben hana yamna afaba scholar amale mana hai Karigumba matamda nation state sovereign power singasina state of exception thambayawi I repeat karigumba matamda sovereign state singsina state of exception thambayawi adu high state of exception ri tacheng hairabadi temporary oigadobani permanent obiati haibadi armed forces special pass act se magi masigi thesis asida I kitang apply to biya brana khali Although Armed Forces Special Pass Section 4 Clause A or Section 6, for example, Mashida Piriba impunity, federal power derogate toba, right to life derogate toba questions in Lapamatam Dadi, Masidi emergency situation, the Legadoba. Norm amani ba magi theories dadi. But that law continuing for nearly 70 years is not a joke. Therefore, state of exception in the sense of Agamben is actually is existing in Manipur even more than the quantity that he imagined. Adugi temporality of exception the man imagined but the modern states have often gone beyond this temporality of exception, where permanence of exception is an order of the day, which is a serious matter related to our democratic existence and our federal dignity. Maramadana mana imagine to the state of exception haibasidi tashena hargati could have been a buffer zone heresy. Buffer zone if it doesn't exist or if it exists, let's forget it for some time. Instead of a buffer zone could be again analyzed to his idea of state of exception, because buffer zone is me but the same person standing for 3 years, not resolving the question, not allowing the people to be freely moving or having access to their livelihood, their property, their rights, is actually a complete violation of the constitutionality of democracy. Therefore, state of exception in our region is so uniquely existing. Adana man haibada state of exception haibasi outside the constitution when lungna bani basengbadi. But I think today in our region it is operating very much inside the constitution, which is creating a serious fundamental violation of our existential rights. Sigi phibam sida academic oi bai koina university da tolob jare bai koina classroom da larik se kamai tak to university aina classroom da changa si matam na yada ta ni phibam na yada ta ni boi be masa no kem cha kan no kem cha no dum smai du le pa chap chap ting le poi mai sang du ni hai du ra. No, I cannot do that. I cannot sacrifice my historically constituted dignity. I cannot violate my rights, my rights of my people. I cannot violate the principles of our knowledge system. I know the lecture say I know the knowledge ke ma haise ki bodo mayam use aina mayam de tamdo ba pham malai ai khoi gi ngasi Manipur gi chidai amada mafam abada khoina phamli ba se ai khoina tawri basi kari no hargadi knowledge production tawjari ne ꯑꯩꯈꯣꯏꯁꯤ ꯋꯥꯈꯜ ꯇꯥꯅꯕꯒꯤ ꯂꯝꯕꯤꯗ ꯑꯩꯈꯣꯏ ꯆꯪꯁꯤꯜꯂꯛꯏꯅꯦꯕ ꯑꯗꯣ ꯃꯁꯤ ꯆꯥꯎꯈꯠꯄ ꯈꯨꯟꯅꯥꯏ ꯑꯃꯗꯗꯤ ꯇꯉꯥꯏ ꯐꯗꯅ ꯇꯧꯗ꯭ꯔꯕ ꯌꯥꯗꯕ ꯐꯤꯕꯝ ꯑꯃꯈꯛꯅꯤ ꯍꯥꯏꯔꯤꯕ ꯑꯗꯨꯅ ꯃꯁꯤꯒꯤ ꯀ꯭ꯔꯥꯏꯁꯤꯁꯀꯤ ꯃꯇꯝꯗ ꯑꯩꯈꯣꯏꯅ ꯐꯝꯕ ꯉꯝꯂꯤꯕꯁꯦ ꯃꯁꯤ ꯉꯝꯍꯜꯂꯛꯇꯕꯁꯨ ꯌꯥꯏ ꯃꯇꯝ ꯑꯃꯗ ꯑꯗꯨꯒꯤ ꯉꯝꯅꯕꯒꯤ ꯃꯆꯥꯛꯁꯤꯡꯗꯣ ꯉꯁꯤꯗꯒꯤ ꯔꯤꯖꯤꯂꯦꯟ ꯑꯣꯏꯕꯁꯦ ꯑꯩꯈꯣꯏꯅ ꯁꯦꯝꯒꯠꯆꯒꯗꯧꯕꯅꯤ ꯍꯥꯏꯕꯁꯤ ꯍꯥꯏꯖꯒꯦ ꯃꯣꯔ ꯏꯟꯇꯔꯦꯁꯇꯤꯡꯂꯤ ꯑꯩꯈꯣꯏ ꯀꯥ ꯑꯁꯤꯗ ꯇꯝꯄꯥꯛꯀꯤ ꯀꯥ ꯑꯃꯗ ꯉꯁꯤ ꯐꯝꯂꯤ ꯌꯥꯝ ꯅꯨꯡꯉꯥꯏꯅ ꯐꯝꯂꯤ ꯑꯗꯣ ꯑꯩꯈꯣꯏꯅ ꯉꯁꯤ ꯉꯥꯡꯉꯤꯕꯁꯤꯒꯤ ꯏꯀꯣꯁꯦ ꯀꯗꯥꯏꯐꯥꯎ ꯆꯠꯀꯗꯒꯦꯁꯦ ꯃꯌꯥꯝ ꯏꯃꯦꯖꯤꯟ ꯇꯧꯕꯤꯌꯣ ꯏꯃꯦꯖꯤꯟ ꯑꯥꯏ ꯑꯦꯝ ꯁꯥꯎꯇꯤꯡ I'm dying in a laure khala I see daure in a laure khala singa tangi wana now let's imagine how many people will listen to your voice and come to your life to be saved sidai zaina haijiring is ai huzik mapanda experience kar lei zai hanaki May 23rd ki matung particularly we have been completely misunderstood we have been completely blocked karai digi ai khoi knowledge circulation to bazu channel kharana completely block towi mayam ai paudam jari sumna aduga ai khoina ngangzagadoba ai khoina paudam jabodoba channel sing su loina block towe how do you imagine sigumba gathering asti Manipur nataba mapalam ki university amada institution amada Manipur ki regional aspiration Manipur ki crisis amda khanasagi in chief the top university amda they will never allow this to happen because they are already so prejudiced and biased. Now the question is, what will be the status of your epistemic concerns? Nange khoigi knowledge ki masigi aseng ba paudam zabagi hak sing se kadai exercise tawduna ba question asilai masi swai gi wadnati samudri gi wang madu so aikhoina chacharu matam da masigi problem si thenai khudam oina haire matam da aikhoina mapan chatpa matam da aikhoigi program du sinbira matung da sinba loraga torum da ye thoki ba bo khoi thena jare different channels are working and your voice is not being heard. They're not allowing your voice to be spoken out. Now then, what is the strategy? I go to Marx assume longer for me Punaba, Sindona, Punaba, Miyama, Damot Palanchenba, Adura in a Mount Amat Pasukilom, and Megan Haraba. This is not going to lead you anywhere. Adu Sigi echo chamber is getting very suffocating. Because you're not aware of the fact that you're completely fighting in a ring and you probably will never be allowed to be out of the ring even if you stop fighting. So, Sigi situation si yam satin dangerous over level ama itha hazadana handa yawi haibasi hana di khara bolera mi channel sing se wangang bayabagi wari shaba yabi hoji channel sing si completely blocked tokshale haibase I'm speaking this in on the basis of my own personal experiences outside the region masima ai thamjaram ge Manipuri nationalism ke wakhalona sing asai in haikiba ngalingai gi matamdagi inter-tribe ethnic issues mayam Lairembi conglomerate semaga valid state formation torakpa asi number 1 Manipuri nest ama bird semgalapagi adugumba ahoba khongchet ama oiki masigi matawasi khare hena advance oba yam hena ngamkhebagi maramdi karigino haiba matamda pre colonial age amada haiba consolidation se tahobana haiba state making advancement si khumang sausena yamna line zera chatpa ngamki aduna maram morga Manipur si region asida aikoi ngasai regionality wafam sida aikoi je afaba mating leba force amoina aikoi si tholki haibasini masigi regionality asidani aikoi gi Manipur gi world gi polkhiba masigi regionality sidani Manipur gi adungba territoriality si masa polkhiba se because all territories are never given it is acquired in some sense and therefore the nations are also not given it is constructed in the process of making or advancing your civilization asum lakpa sina koi kha thengdarapada loyum basinian lai loyum basinian sigi political reading ama tawshade isham sampida haragadi social reorganization toba administrative decentralization toba pana system hangakpa aduga economic revival tawna ba honarakpa si yamna ka hena afaba Manipur gi punsi khongchata state amasung territory anigi marakta laiba adugumba frequency to balance tawna gi honarakpa ningtho loyum bagi initiative amani haina ikona thamba yai tensila pada sum sangsila ga ikoi hairiba matam sigi lorakpada ningthau kiyam bagi matamda Manipur gi territorial stability zi chauthorakpa aduga lam singsi Asia tiki South Asia ki Western borderland asida aikoi ki amna chopa presence ama lakpusi ningthau kyam gi matam da lakpa atu perhaps for the first time akoi ki nokchuklong gi haigadra masigi lining dasu introduced toropagi mami uba horoppa. So Manipur was very much flourishing in the age of 15th century, and masigi matam masida quite interesting oibasidi Manipur ki territorial expansion ji yamna south horoppa adu madu retain down honabada matamdugi punsi state making ki punsi role achauba steps low horoppa sina Manipur ki modern Manipur sembagi yumpham oikiba gi warisi aikoi de lai matadagi zu hendoktana aikoi na mahaki matamda border demarcation toroppa marwad eastern borders de demarcate toroppa gi mafam lai adu gi shumata Chinese expansion ji mahakna Burma da toropam tan mahakna thingna honar kiba madam maduna geopolitical factor amorga Manipur gi territoriality da soluk payabagi khudong thiba do mahang na ukhiba siguma mayam sina Manipur ji tapna state and territoriality gi khongchat amada lakhiba si ekon uba phangi madugi matungda khage maning thoki sisu yam interesting oi maha kisina nokchup lomda barak na chingba mapam sing sida magi expansion tawba horakpa mahang na lam sing si stabilize torpa territory ki process torpa hoba masi maha ki matam Chinese ki infiltration in the Burmese area si mahana ukhiba masipuna maksi aina haibanati gangumai kami the historian asina ibadasu yaname lana palli. Interestingly makoi hiring aisida ikona Manipur ki historian sing sida khwaidigi maming leba historian kara putokpa matamda Manipur ki world view se kada de reflect tauge haida di Manipur ki khwaidigi renowned historian sing si hauji ki oinadi aikona non meitei sing dagi su maming chat historians in Zilay. Gangumai Kame is one of them, Ladena is one of them. Adana Masidasu Manipuri ki history as a community amagi stam nate. This is a very highly expanded form of national perspective ama leiba. Ado highly ba historian singnasu masige comfortable oina makoresu masida yamna critical research torum bagi amna chawba liki sima leiba si mapan yimini yam sen ngat base koi thingnei haibata. Madam the Karam Haina Manipur history ni Haraga maintain Natabasumam is Kamana. This is very interesting. I call the feedback su B. Madam Baduna Koigi su Yam Chow talk sending about academic intellectual history lay I koigi Adudi Hendoktana Manipur mergers in 1993 the PDM Sindana mergers annexation ni Haina Lautopa Atumba GM holding me pump dasu signatory Oibase Chingmi Suyauribani Madrid Laldena Masunga Momekamisu signatory Oibani. There was a very interesting trajectory of a larger worldview that existed in Manipur till about early 1990s. Masidagi su hendoktana 1984 and adugi mamang amasung adugi tarak pasida sida akogi naga conglomerate ki chief minister ani putoktana. There was a very smooth expansion of the worldview called Manipuri worldview. But at the same time adugi hek thengdara pamatam dani ngasai political assassination tawba hobna rakiba Manipuri worldview sida yawba adugum atongba lambi myo sing se intimidation yang kan tawba rakiba makoi punsi tem sing na rakiba aduga lalholu tasu community ki mingda lalhau lok thokpa horkiba adu matamaduda Manipuri nationalism da Manipuri world view da achauba chai theng pi horaki madudagi horaki ganu ngasi phawda madui khongchet tugi ahoba ikut sing ado mena bhanabada ngasi Manipuri world view da thazaba apunba Manipuri wakalon thazaba aikoi myamna nungnang na honari bani haina samna thamba yai. Cancel pada I moderator want to be if I'm exceeding my time. How do you sum I sum naxil pada I ko na hiding basi Manipur si British na law kre matunga Manipur si paramount si amagi makhara thamni indirectly British rule kawi kari gino hada Manipur si British India gi saruk ta chalam de ai koi khangi princely state ama oi Lairembi Manipur si princely state ama oi bata natana Manipur gi khwaidi advancement si kari no hadi India the British thado khra matung di India na British thado ga constitution e na bhone ga Manipur constitution evolution ki ba election tawshila pa 48 ta aduga 49 da Manipur gi ning thawo Shillong da kauduna namdana sahi tawna ki ba masi makhoi gi lom da takeover haina kawi masen research thengnajarak pani aduga hairiba kenosi merger agreement asi aina sei yam sangadi lecture sei yahan jararoi aina su work to area di oi adubu ai sei tentak na ina haiji tori si mayangi mitna kong oina ba ai koi the confusion kar aina sa haiji kibodo merger agreement da chenaba political party dugi maike dagi wanga kumta merger da mai lab khudam thambang patam piba ngamoi haibasi aina claim tawjai masi yamna logical oi bo formani cultural nationalism da ngawa political party na apunba manipuri waklon sagatpa oi tho oi haiba punamaksi aina frame on thamjaraga instrument annexation sign tawkhabani na manipur ki political status si leitre India ki saru oi kre haina interpretation p na bo na ba scholarship su khara makai ud lai adu ba ai ne shamsum na haijaba di merger agreement oblique IOA oblique independence Indian independence act puna maksi yamna well research or ba thimamani ana thamsiki well research or ba habdi masile se thodona yamna ka hena ano prithvi numina prithvi da koi haina hana lerambado prithvi na numit se koi bani ana hairakpan mitu de ngasi phawda almost adum thajana leinari dumaina manipur gi merger gi matang da laiba controversy se am resolve tawrbani adubu haujikan si khanghaudana maichau khara tholaga adum sigi issue ji confusion chalana bagi wangang mujikone su uzaba haidare aduna I came to position low the sham samida it is a very well researched domain and you probably can speak much about it only when you do a proper research on this hana numina prithvi koi hairambado research tawra matungda prithvi na numit koi bo oirambado maina oire haragati wadu thambiro natragadi confusion chatnaba wadu thambada thodona kanaba leiti sini Isham Sambida Haragadi, Section 5 IOA, Instrument Annexation, Section 6 IOA, Instrument Annexation, 7 and 8, 5 and 8 Haidarika. Masreki Haidibasi, Haidiba Instrument Annexation say Indiana Emen Tomata the Manipuri Nitona Yaba, Yagadavan have a late, Section 5. Section 6, Haidiba Instrument Annexations in India, Manipuri Matang, the Len Lo Semba, Manipuri Lam Lotion, Bayaba Air was a PT. Section 7 and 8, Haidiba Instrument Annexation is in Section 7 and 8. Instrument annexation is in Indiana, Semba, Tungdalakal Constitution of the Manipur in Gadavani Hibalati. That's fairly clear, I think. So, see, you don't need to be a lawyer, you don't need to be a magistrate to understand these simple facts of the law, provisions of the act. Otherwise, the confusion is so let's call a spade and haina badumina. Aduki intellectual honesty to the Eko Tabak Tausi, Manipur world view, Ado Eko Mun critical when a year with Tona to delay in a sea, Hibasima, Tamzaba. Sumsum, cancel for the Aina Huzik, I want to piri but topic a sida. Lecture of the Manipuri Nationalism ki hybrid wakalon si aina total in thamjadishri 1947 amasung 48 se Manipuri Nationalism ki quite prime constitutional moment amani ayam ta repeat tawjage Manipuri Nationalism ki Manipuri world view ki quite pak chawba negotiated oraba yaminaraba adugumba kanglon punsi khongchanta lakhiba political kanglon the hypotare cultural ding ata thamgisi because culturally there were several problems even at that time. Mayam Kambirangani, culturally, the Matamda Su Yam, the problem they resolved Tobungam Daba, Mardi, people are busy in different forms of cultural practices. Because some of these cultural ethos were new to the region and people are celebrating it too much. I Kudam Changdam or the Mamuna Panbiranu, at 1947 say, Adu cultural nationalism, cultural ethos, ma'am, the Hudson and Norwesing Duna, Nakal Abdul Horaga, Manipuri political democratic culture Amaki negotiation, the 47, 48, 49 Ziola, Yamputana resolved on about Anlamasina, E. Bona, Kre, Hibasina, Manipuri, hopeful over moment amala me, Hibasi, Tamzagi, Maduna Manipuri nationalism, Wapamzi, Shwaita, India's nationalizing politics the tentak na haidor isi BP Menon haidana Manipur lokshin tada states ki integration in charge ba mio esina integration states in India na lairigam e VP Menon mahna haibase mahna haiba court amakak sumaina magi lairik te yawbani aina haibana te aina masi hairisi nainaba nuaina bani karigina ma sumai haibani India was merely a geographical entity. It never had a political homogeneity in its entire long past. India's geographical identity, there was no political homogeneity in its long history of the past. Sigi premise asi leibaduna mahana khangi Manipur gi merger tauba haibado taudaba yakidaba India gi nationalizing politics khongchet amani haibsini matamduri inaba letter si chani chom si aina thingnazari. Interestingly, aina ngakhiba amakha 1983 da haiba documents asi Kolkata gi oibiaba Bengali amane visit torabagi file note Lairembi 1983 da haiba file to visit to hena mi amaka ki record Lairembi 1983 gi matungda 2007 da aina visit to aduga haiba visit to file sida Manipur gi merger da tonramba letters mayam si ahana thingnazar ki around 300 letters or 500 letters. Masigi letters sida Manipur si laudaba yade karigi damaktano masi frontier region amani karigi damaktano communism jam expand tawre karigi damaktano second world war da laithoba nanthoba nongmai myam je revolutionary forces myam makut tagre maramatana Manipur da communism laiba laiba ning tamba laiba ama laiba yaroi Manipur India sharu oitaba yadabani haina date si thabani date si tharaga September gi tang kun mathoida Manipur si merge to document si pung manga ga minute manga chat pa dwaida khuyek bina bani Shillong da masi sham sambida BP manen no thaba report da masi a 5-day drama koi moi letter da numit manga ni gi drama ni hai maram ning thosi ki hanba khanghanba amuk kana bong pi na bo na ba themba puna maksi to basina maram orga makhoi na masi gi numit manga ni ase 5-day drama ni haina kawi maram India gi nationalizing politics na Manipur gi atugum laba constituent assembly da yum pham ba democratic constitution adu khongchat adu lephan khi aduga Manipur India na loction khibagi wahau si kadai di horkibano harigadi matam du leramba Major General Rawal Amar Singh hariba nupa asina Manipur diwan hone pusilakhiba aduga Manipur gi matam du gi lainga na diwan haibasidi constitution Manipur constitution na masak khangde nang lakanu nang chakho haina mha sina sum Delhi lenga ta paw pi badagi wathok chi chawthurak padagi diwan si ahen bathabak ase complaint to bachatpani haina su letter sing sida ningthong shilong chatpase su nu thingnei adugo diwan ase constitutional oide haidana Manipur gi matam du lenga na ba cherol pi na ngangna na leiriba diwan sem diwan asena October gi tang 13 1949 da pung 32 taba matam da Manipur ase India gi manung challe amaso hana leramba council of minister du uthaire haidana chi thokpa sisu nationalizing politics on democratic oiba khongchat amani haibasi ma swaida thamjaraga India gi nationalizing politics maram asina maram orega 1947 da linkhatkiba Manipur gi lenga punsi khangona do democratic ki oiba transition amai khudong jaba bi khide haibasi aina thamjaba hauze Manipur gi position gi matang da aina research tawjaba thim amada minute anung tang lojege ado tension mo honazarake Manipur gi hauze aina mayamda aina mapanda sum chatpa musu research tawjaba matamda ayana Malem Muhammad Singh chatpa matamda aina kan thi da honazabasi Malem gi countries sing asida conflict kayam thoi historical conflict kayam lai ning tambagi ho right to self determination gi ho lai autonomy gi ho lai reservation gi adedi identity gi mayam lai ado hairiba yo singa se apapa lengak singa karam haina madubu loshinna bagi democratic process jatha bagi haibasi aina kitan research to the Philippines ki case azi yam interesting oi ba haita masigi da wafam tang thamjaraga mayamda khudam changdam oina ba Philippines da the Office of the Presidential Advisor on Peace, Reconciliation and Unity in 1993 I repeat, regional political party aspiration labelsing number si no tobio. The Office of the Presidential Advisor on Peace, Reconciliation and Unity hype offices 1993 da Philippines ki government na form tawi aduga makhoina bongsha morogi Maruina Mindanao gi atugumba lalhogi iran se yam constitutional provision ama create tawraga madugi du study tawraga democratic dialogue me khuthan engage tawra hona ki experience ama lai ado Manipur amasung India gi awang nok lam singda hauriba iho khongchet mayam ase ngasi faw the karam institution ama laina na constitution gi oiba semaga masi nainari bage haibasi aina thijaba matamda leiram da bahaita particularly Manipur aduna masigumba mayam sina takpadi Manipur da leiba mugna bage fiba masi regional political aspiration labor loop singna karam haina democratic oiba institutionalism laitana karam haina justice fangadori bono have a question see raised to way from the oil and Philippines model is a very interesting model aduga Nagaland amasung Mizoram dadi amuksu kitang tongali makoi historicity of state making is very different from Manipur but they got 371A 371G so probably that may also be a reason for two reasons maybe they have a different political trajectory today in comparison to Manipur. One, because they were never in that pattern of modern state making in its long, vast history of existence. Manipuri people, you call it valley-centric or you call it valley-driven state formation, but there was a very rich tradition of territoriality, constitutionality and state-making system. So therefore, in our DNA, I think we have got this very serious desire of being a territorial body, which is uncompromising in many ways, because the DNA informs you instantly all the time that you have had a history of that kind. Other than you like or not, that's a different story, but there are historical trajectories, there are constitutional processes that you just simply cannot, sidelined. Aduna Manipur gi ethnic homeland taliba mayam sinasu yarabadi tai phadana masigi constitutional processes mayam se ipa ipuna sangsilaba constitutional processes mayam se matugi mutuality mayam se kitang di acceptable mathauta natabida adushu haibagu mawongda ethnic identity politics towards it is very dangerous for the community themselves. Not for even everyone. The community themselves will doom if they keep on insisting on the exclusive identitarian politics, because that has not worked. That is the reason why we once started saying that ethnic homeland is obsolete. It is obsolete. If you believe in ethnic homeland, then you only have to wage war against communities that you live with together. And that's not fair. That's not good. That's not historically true. Gut feeling. Interestingly, Manipur the Lairembi ethnic politics and more scholarship things in a kind of gap. Manipur the 1947 constitution Chingmi Tami Muhammad Loy Yaw Semi Haibasibo the Lairembi has a Haibangam Zedaba scholarship with Putore. That is truly naive, truly disastrous for the fact that you even don't have the guts to say that there was a historical process of that kind. Because you are too ethnicized, because you are too enclosed with your sectarian ethnic identity. I'm not demeaning any ethnic identity. The only thing is that if you think that every identity has to have a homeland and territorial homeland, that's infeasible. Over the years, we have seen ethnic homeland conceptions. Initially, they are attractive, but in the long run, it backfires. It is going to happen on the north. It is going to happen on the south. That's very important. We have to remember. I know badi awang this is problem tholakani. Makhar this problem tholakani. And better we have to create political institutions. Better we have to create better institutionalism, better democratic understanding amongst the communities, so that we can negotiate and we can still vouch for living together. Not that instead of exception, exception to ordinary or a human rights, fundamental existence, dignity, law, evaporate or have say, I almost lower. I was election, Amasung, regionality, Matanda, as I can man, I became a Sukan, a Peltopada. Regional aspiration, like visiting Sina, Bolepada Han, emphasis Piraba. I think Satina fail of each chance of Wang and him. Can you know the Sig regionalities either Yaw Bowakalonzikarino as a communicator of the target? It will be very difficult for people to understand what you are really trying to do with this idea of originality. That's one. Second, Election is not always, I repeat, this is a thesis that I'm producing these days. I put up a thesis, I university, paper say, election is not necessarily always an indicator for a successful democracy. Haibati election tauba da thawayam yauba amasu election mikal da mai pak pasikatana democracy ke successful indicators hoy because India ki democracy is a variety of democracy hariba magi institutions ki report matun electoral autocracy ka ugre Bangladesh is electoral autocracy ka hai Pakistan ki ka hai Burma ki ka hai but interestingly Bhutan, Nepal, they still retain this position called electoral democracy. Interesting words. Kingdom of the Lairembi state sings there. Kingdom of the Lairembi state. Even Bhutan is still a kingdom. But they have qualified to be an electoral democracy, unlike India, which is electoral autocracy. I have this VDM report is saying 2025. Sige mayam si pulak iya electoral practice that 86 to 85 to 87% vote Manipur but how does it help in reflecting a critical civil society? 86-87% vote Manipuri kunaya sita civility amasung civic culture, civic political culture operate study before we jump into the river of regional political aspiration. Sigi civility study political democracy deepen democracy civic culture promotion it is not divisive versa. Political institution civic culture theory worldwide study in the country study country study the civic culture name political democracy is adana koi gari mama ile ke har da nomai par tanarpa khundu da bu khunai da bu akoina karam haina democratic political culture mai wa mangduno we have to tell this person who is gun wielding not to violate these basic norms of civility. Akoi Manipur se na wono di fawb se akoi na mi amade gari overtake tau ge se ina anira wakal khale hai ma mis no mai pare mo di kamai to ba hai I'm beginning to think like that. This is a very traumatized civil existence. Therefore we need to work on this. Finally, last sentence. I think urep aduga urep ki yamba sing aigisu role model na leibirakpa yamba myam yauri Nasi Tinbiriba, moderator Amadi, Mandalin Sindro, Ozasing, I told on Hena Kang Hena Kam Haizabanate, but we have the passion to understand. And that is very important, I guess. And let's inculcate. Universities should become relevant, not irrelevant. Other universities say autonomous unit Thamsi, Ozasing intellectual cultures in Mangalushi, Adu state Nadi Kaidamadasu, state in the sense the Westphalian state. The modern state is not very, very friendly to intellectual rights, but we have to save it. Thank you very much.